Man, I don't know where that voice is coming from. It's just like it comes from above somewhere. Hey, everybody, this is Kenny Ann
Kenny squared.
with the Sports on the Positive Tip podcast. Kenny, how are things there in Cleveland?
Well, things are actually pretty good. Wild game yesterday.
Yeah, I think we'll start NFL first, right? Because we got a lot to talk about. I want to give you plenty of time to talk about the Yankees. But I do have a question for you real quick that I wanted to start out with because I think we would forget or run out of time. Kyrie Irving, you and I kind of went back and forth a little bit on text, just saying that we would want to talk about him. I want to hear your take on what is going on with Kyrie. And I'm not sure if there's any other, there probably are a few other NBA players not vaccinated. I know Andrew Wiggins, caved in and said, and got vaccinated. But what's been your take watching from afar here with Kyrie?
It's very interesting because, and I think you probably know this too, the NFL, or not the NFL, the NBA has been pretty, I feel like all the sports, none of them have mandated the vaccine. A lot of that has to do with the Players Association. It's the whole, it would have to be collectively bargained. So right. I think it makes it complicated. But essentially the NBA said you have to follow what your city mandates. So in New York City, you have to be vaccinated to do any kind of indoor event. So New York and also San Francisco are the only two right now. That could easily change, especially if COVID numbers continue to rise. But really for me, first of all, obviously that knocks Kyrie out of pretty much half the season, plus 4 games, the 2 against the Knicks, and then I guess that's only 3 games, and then also against Golden State. So for me, it's too much of a distraction because it's not like it's going to be the first half of the season. It's very back and forth. So in my opinion, I would say, Kyrie, we love you, man, but please stay away from our team until you decide to get vaccinated or the season's over. Because having him in and out of the lineup, first of all, Kyrie is kind of that guy that's going to be in and out anyway. But then again, to me, it's just, it's going to kill their continuity. The Nets with James Harden and Kevin Durant can still probably win the East. And Kyrie kind of adds that added element to kind of put them over the top. But I think having him in and out of the lineup is too much. Personally, I would say I would try to trade him. But Kyrie apparently has also gotten the word out that he would retire if he got traded. To me, the perfect trade in my head would be Kyrie for Ben Simmons. 2 guys that, because at least if Kyrie goes to Philly, that's a pretty good situation.
Yeah.
And he can play most of his games. And then Ben Simmons with Brooklyn, with James Harden and Kevin Durant, that is a very scary top 3 guys. Well, they won't do that, but
yeah, he wouldn't have to worry about scoring if he came to the Nets. So let me ask you this. I have a little bit of a different take on Kyrie over the last year, I would say. I probably am glad he's not on the Knicks now, even though he's still one of the top players in the NBA, ultra talented. But I just don't think that, and this is not a knock on him, right? And the whole vaccination thing, I'm so indifferent to it, right? I think everybody has to make their choices. That's all I'll say. But I just get the feeling, and tell me if you feel the same way, that Kyrie wants to do so much more with his life than play basketball. He's such a humanitarian. I think when things happen in the world, it really, really hits him hard. And I think he feels this way, I think he feels this way, that he wants to do more, that he wants, to help a lot of, Black Lives Matter causes and things like that. But I think that he's just a different dude, man. I could see him retiring early. Are you feeling the same way? Do you get that same vibe from him?
Yeah, especially like what was that? Was that last year where he like randomly vanished for a couple weeks and then he like popped up on a random Zoom call with a bunch of like high-end donors to some organization, some nonprofit. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, I think, and also there's been a lot of people that have kind of said that like no one would be too surprised if Kyrie is like the type of person that just walks away early, a la Andrew Luck or the guy from Carolina who I think is like my age.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised, and especially like for him, I mean, he's going to be missing half of the season, and like what else is he really? He's not like James Harden where he doesn't have a ring. Um, he had one of the most iconic shots in NBA history. Like,
Yeah.
he doesn't really have a ton to prove.
Yeah.
He's not like Kevin Durant, who's like kind of has to like win a title by himself, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I could see him just kind of saying, "All right, yeah, I'm good."
You know,
Whatever.
to your point, it's been rare that athletes at the top of their game, like he is, and in his prime, like he is. And I don't have his age in front of me. Maybe you can look that up real quick. I want to say he's probably 27, 28, maybe 29. But, over the years, Jim Brown, walked away in his prime after I think only 9 years in the NFL. But, he went for a movie career because they weren't going to allow him to kind of take some time off to film movies. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to go do it full time. They always expected him to come back. He never did. Sandy Koufax was more of an injury, right? His arm, he just couldn't do it anymore, even though his last season was like one of his best.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders, walked away early and never looked back. Calvin Johnson was, I think, only 30 and never looked back. So we've seen it happen, but it happens rarely, and I could see Kyrie being one of those guys, that runs to something else instead of running from the NBA. I think he loves to play basketball, but I just think that he probably would want to be doing other things. And I think if he gets pushed really hard, like if the Nets say, listen, we're backed into a corner here, we're not going to trade you, you need to go get vaccinated. I don't know. I could see him kind of just stepping away,
Yeah, and I think also he would kind of see himself as a kind of like I hate comparing him to Kaepernick in that situation, but like I think he would say I'd rather like stand up for my vaccination rights as opposed to just saying, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Because Andrew Wiggins, they tried to get him a religious exemption, and the NBA said no. I didn't really read further into that, but I just kind of saw that in like a push notification.
Well, it's interesting. It's been a big news here in New York, so I think it's gonna come to a head at some point before the regular season starts. I would think the Nets will want to get this wrapped up one way or another. I can tell you this: I would be shocked if he got vaccinated. And he just doesn't see. He seems like the type of guy that takes a stance and that's it. He draws that line in the sand. But I think that'll also, I could see Kyrie Irving running for office one day, like a senator or something like that. I definitely, I think that he has other things in mind. There's nothing wrong with that. We love sports, but not everybody, thinks that's the be and end all,
Yeah.
All right.
Fun fact too. He's 29.
He's 29. He's right in his prime. I mean, you think about these next 4 or 5 years, if he plays every day and that team wins a couple of championships, I mean, his legacy will be really cemented. He'd be a big part of that. But we care about that. I'm not sure that he does. And that's not a bad thing. I'm not judging that at all. I just think that, he has won his championship. I just think that he has other things that he wants to do, so I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to talk about that in the next week or so as we do our NBA preview, which, believe it or not, we have to do. Probably.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We'll have to do that next week. All right, let's jump into football. Let's start with your Browns and Chargers. That was a crazy game. I saw the highlights. I didn't see much of the game itself. It wasn't on TV here. My favorite game was that Bengals-Packers game We can get to that in a second, and the Jets and Giants. But let's start with Brown. The Chargers are good, man. But I mean, what the heck? That was just a high-scoring back-and-forth game. So you give us a recap because I didn't see it.
Yeah. So Browns kind of controlled the game for probably about definitely the first half, and then for most of the third quarter.
Yeah.
And then they had just a couple of stalled drives here and there. And then they were up by 10, I believe. And then the Chargers made it all the way back and took the lead. They scored a couple touchdowns, back-to-back drives. And then at that point, it was let's say 35-30 or something along those lines. I'd have to look up the score. But 2 plays later, Baker Mayfield throws to Njoku, 72 yards for the touchdown. In a split second, the Browns take the lead again. So it was okay, they kind of go, and then back and forth, touchdown, and the Chargers have the ball. It's a tied game at this point because the guy missed field goals or missed extra points was a big thing yesterday. I know you'll talk about that in a second with the other Ohio team.
Yeah.
But it played a big factor here as their kicker missed a couple extra points. They had to go for a couple 2-pointers. So they had the ball and it was tied. You were kind of approaching that 2-3 minute mark. So they were trying to go very methodically. They had a couple of pretty bigger plays to the point where it was 1st and goal with about a minute and a half left. The Browns had 1 timeout. So essentially, they're trying to just do a running play so that they can center the ball so that their kicker can kick a nice, easy field goal. The Browns decide to push the runner in, to the point where it looked like a pile was okay, they're being stopped. And then the Browns just shoved the guy that way. And it was a smart play. I don't know if this was a Stefanski thing, but I think it was a smart play because at that point you weren't getting the ball back. You might as well try and get possession. So they had to go for 2 there. So they were up by 5. Browns try, they make it to about the 50 or so. It was kind of weird because I thought that they probably should have gone for a couple of shorter plays, but once they hit the 50, they were just trying to bomb for the end zone. They didn't make it. Honestly, I looked at the last play. It was kind of one of them Hail Marys. A couple of guys got tripped up, but also you never see a call.
Yeah.
Especially now that that's pass interference isn't reviewable anymore.
Yeah.
There's a couple things that I took away from it. First of all, like you said, the Chargers are really good. Watch out, Chiefs. I know we could probably talk about them in a second.
Yeah.
But I think that it's one of those, to me, it was one of the highest scoring, fun back and forth games to watch since that Chiefs Rams game from a few years back.
Yeah. Monday night. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a fun game. I think for me, first of all, if the Browns keep running the football, they'll stay in games. Their defense is usually pretty tight. But it seems like they don't fully trust Baker Mayfield. And I feel like when you have to put the ball in his hands and have him basically win the game in the air, he doesn't seem to fully grasp that yet. And I say yet, I don't know if that's a thing that he just continues to push through. But the Browns have lost twice. Both of them were kind of a little bit more on Baker than they were on anybody else. The Chiefs, bad interception that kind of ended up turning that game. And then here, it's really hard to score with 50 seconds left. But Tom Brady does it all the time. Patrick Mahomes does it fairly often.
True. Yeah.
Lamar Jackson has done it multiple times here.
Yeah.
So I think if Baker's going to take that next step and lead this team to a potential Super Bowl, he's got to be that guy to step up in these late 4th quarter overtime type of drives.
Wow, I agree. Wow, that's a great game. I think you summed it up great. And the quarterback for the Chargers is really good. So you think the last couple of weeks they beat the Raiders and they beat the Browns. Those are two big wins for them. That team might be turning a corner. But I agree. I think the Browns are still. I think that game probably could have went in either way. But I agree with everything you said with Baker. It's everybody else on that team has risen up. He's got to do the same. So I'll get to the Packers and Bengals real quick. That's Cincinnati's another team that has a different feel to it, and I think a big part of it is the quarterback. And they were so smart in getting a couple of LSU guys that are on that team with him. One of the receivers, the running back. It's a fun team to watch. They definitely are more disciplined than they used to be under Marvin Lewis. And Marvin Lewis was there for so long. And I thought he was a good coach, very consistent. I mean, they made the playoffs a lot. They just never won a playoff game under him. But so I definitely like their look and feel. They knew they were in a big game, even though it wasn't a 4 o'clock game. I mean, the Packers have played so well, and Aaron Rodgers is just on his game. But the Bengals hung right in with him. And that is the first time since 1991, I think, was the stat that came up, that there were 5 field goals missed from overtime and from 2 minutes left in the game through overtime. First time in that many years. 3 by the Packers, which is stunning because he's one of the best kickers of all time. I mean, he's made clutch kicks in the freezing cold in Green Bay. I mean, it was just stunning how, and the team backed him up. They kept giving him a chance. The Bengals kicker was a little worse. I don't know if you saw this. So the first one that he missed, it clanked off of the sidebar, right? That could happen. The second one that he missed, it was by inches and it hit the flag. So it looked like originally, in fact, Steve Albert was calling the game, and you could tell he was getting ready to say it was good, but he waited for the official. He's like, it's no good,
Yeah.
But he started celebrating the kickers. I don't know if you saw that. He's hugging him.
Yeah.
And then finally, one of the players was like, "No, you missed it." It was funny. But that game, I thought that game was destined to end in a tie. I think you had texted me that. And then the NFL has got to do something about this rule, man. This has gone on for years. And I knew it as soon as, unfortunately, one of the players was hurt, right? So there was a delay. And I'm like, oh, gosh, at exactly 4:24, they're going to cut away. Sure enough, the screen goes blank. There's about 2 minutes left in overtime. Green Bay is driving. Screen goes blank. Next thing you know, the Giants are on. I mean, you got to do something about that, And I don't know what, because I guess still the league rules say that, the home team's game has to be 100% in, it has to be in the home market 100%. I get that, but oh my gosh, and that happens at least 3 or 4 times a year, where you're watching a 1 o'clock game and then all of a sudden just that's off. And I was looking at it, I said, watch, we're not going to make it. When the guy got hurt, it was like a good 5-minute delay. I was like, we're not going to make it. So it was a fun game. It really was. What were your thoughts? I'll ask you about 2 more games, and we can get caught up on the New York teams tomorrow, next week maybe, because I think injury with the Giants just killed them. And the Jets, I thought, played okay from the highlights. I didn't see that game either. But the 2 other games I want to ask you about, what was your take on the Raiders and Bears? Did the whole John Gruden thing, you think, affected the Raiders any? Because the Bears are good. I don't think the Bears are that good. And the quarterback is good. He'll probably be excellent down the road. But did you think that? They looked flat, some of the highlights I saw of that game.
Yeah, I wonder, because, there was the big comments from the Chargers from last week. Joey Bosa was saying, yeah, Derek Carr is pretty much he's basically a pushover. You get him a little pressure and he's just going to fold. And they didn't look that good. Now, I know the Bears, you have Khalil Mack, you have a pretty good defense, but still, it's one of those times where as a quarterback, you need to kind of say, I'm going to take charge here. I'm going to be that guy to say, okay, who cares what anybody else says, and kind of play my game. And the Bears have not been good this year. But maybe there is something to be said about actually knowing what your role is. We say this sometimes in baseball when a guy is like, okay, you're the eighth inning guy, and it kind of like then hits a groove, or like Labor Torres at the end of the year becoming the second baseman. Like maybe that something kind of clicked a little bit with Justin Fields, but also I don't necessarily think he played that great. I think it was more like the Raiders didn't play that well. And
yeah,
I don't know, it looks kind of like there's always a couple of teams every year where you're like, they start out like 3-0, 4-0, and then like maybe they make the playoffs, maybe they don't. I feel like the Raiders are starting to look like one of those teams.
yeah. Well, I guess. Do you think the team has bailed a little bit on Gruden? I mean, that was an awful. Listen, I feel a certain way. So I mean, that email was from 10 years ago, but the way he tried to explain it away, that he said he's got Michelin tire lips, the way he tried to explain it away. I mean, we know that that's been a racial epithet for Black people for a long time, forever.
Yeah.
Big lips, right? The way he tried to explain it away was that, he calls people Michelin tire lips if their mouth is always running like a tire and everything like that. And maybe that's the case, but so his apology seemed half-hearted to me. I guess, I think, and nobody's going to come out and say this, but I think we all have something racial in our, some sort of racial prejudice in our DNA. We're just kind of wired that way from where we've grown up. For once, I'd love somebody to say, because we also had Jim Cott, 82 years old, saying something stupid, as well. And I just, the apology happens, and then it goes on, and then, probably in another week or two, we're going to hear about something else. I mean, Gruden, especially with his stature, right, was a long-time announcer, Super Bowl winning coach before. He's got some stature, and I think he was as transparent as he could have been. I would have liked to see him take a step further. And, some of his former teammates, players, are coming out and saying they, never saw anything racial. And that's more than likely that's true. But you didn't hear much from his current team. It was almost like, yeah, you're on your own, I just thought that the Raiders, and maybe you're right though, maybe has nothing to do with that. Maybe they're just not as good as they looked in those first 3 weeks or so. But maybe there's something underlying. Like, there's no way you could tell me that the Jacksonville Jaguars are that bad. There's definitely something underlying there with the whole Urban Meyer thing. He can't stay out of his own way, and
Nope.
And then the video surfaces not just because she's dancing, but then his hand is in a certain place. I mean, and the video doesn't lie. I mean, he can't. How can he explain that away? And so I think his players were probably lukewarm on him anyway. And it's so funny. You could be up here in a college game, but you got to start right here in the NFL. Most people don't remember Nick Saban had 0 success in the NFL. Lou Holtz, an all-time great college football coach, 0 success in like 1 year with the Jets. He was 3-13. So it's hard. Some coaches really make the transition well, but it's very hard to do. But you have to have some sort of credibility, and he seems like he's lost his. I want to ask you about the Chiefs and Bills. What's your take? What's your take on the Chiefs 2-3?
Yeah. Real quick too, with both Gruden and Meyer, I do think they've kind of lost their locker rooms a little bit. Urban Meyer, I saw a little bit of an interview. Tim Tebow was on First Take.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. He was kind of saying like, yeah, I really feel bad for his wife and kids. Didn't really say a ton about Urban Meyer other than like, yeah, he kind of has to like gain everyone's trust back. Which, I mean, Tim Tebow is saying that that's not that good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I felt like Tebow went kind of halfway. I mean, listen, he's got to be loyal to Urban Meyer, right? And Urban Meyer's the only reason why he was in a camp as a tight end this year, but apparently that's one of the reasons also why the team has kind of lost some confidence in Meyer too, I don't know. So the difference is, you made a great point. The difference is that I think John Gruden, being a veteran coach, longtime announcer, I think he knows how to get the locker room back. I don't think, since Urban Meyer really is a rookie in the NFL players is so different than that college player that you've recruited. You've built a relationship with their parents. You've gone to their house, to recruit them. You've known them since they were in high school. It's different. You can make that mistake in college, you would win them back, and they're younger kids. These are a lot of hardened veterans, that are like, who is this guy? He was a good college coach. He's proved nothing in the NFL, so it's hard. See, I think Gruden will win the locker room back. He knows how to do that. I'm not sure Meyer will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Bills Chiefs. I think, like I had said, I don't know if I had texted this to you or I might have just texted it to my friends. The Chiefs are really a Baker pick away from being 1-4. I also had seen that they have the work. They've given up 29 points or more in each of their 5 games, something that no one's ever done before. Obviously, Patrick Mahomes is a world-class talent. But that defense is kind of scary. And at this point, it should be very alarming for all of the Kansas City faithful. But I think so many people focus so much on the Chiefs. Let's not forget that the Bills are very, very good
gosh,
team.
I'm so glad you said that. Yeah, absolutely.
Let me pull it up. I forgot going into this, I believe they scored like 118 points in 3 games. But like this Bills team, which like being in upstate New York in the middle of Bills Nation for 3 years, they are one of, if not the most loyal fan base, which makes me so excited for them.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was up there in like the late 2000s, people were just like, yeah, everything's painful. We always start out like 3-0, 4-0, and never make the playoffs. And then, of course, when we win the Super Bowl, we got to lose 4 straight. So, like, seeing this team, like, they look right now like they are the favorite in the AFC. They've looked really dominant. Josh Allen taking that big money, and a lot of times, like players will kind of take that step back. And at first it kind of looked that way, but these last few weeks, they've looked really good. Let's see. Okay, so we'll take out, these are preseason. We'll take out their first loss against Pittsburgh. Preseason, it was weird. They eliminated a preseason game. Since week 2, 35-0, 43-21, 40-0. And 38-20 against the defending AFC champs. Like, amazing. That's amazing. And right now, like if I was up in Bills Nation right now, I know they would be excited. Imagine this though: there's a chance that you could see the Bills and the Browns in the AFC title game. Like that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it gives me hope for the Jets and Giants.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add. I like the Bills last year. I like Josh Allen and how he's come along. He's got weapons, Stephon Diggs, and he's got a bunch of weapons. I'm surprised at how good their defense has been this year, and I'm shocked that the Chiefs are 2-3. I really am. I don't know what's happened to their defense. All right, let's jump to baseball because I'm kind of getting a little message that I have to go a little bit earlier. So. Let's jump first. Let's jump to the playoffs from now, and then I want to give you some time on the Yankees, and then we can quickly do a fun fact or two. Anything surprising you with the play? The Braves won today, so they're up now 2-0. Anything surprising you in the playoffs here so far?
Truth be told, not really that much. The Red Sox right now went away from the ALCS. Really, for me, an Astros-Red Sox ALCS is as painful as an Astros-Rays ALCS. So
I knew you were going to say that.
So I'm not going to talk too much about that. But it is interesting because I've gotten so used to the extra inning rule mode, and with like the extra runner at second and everything like that.
Yeah.
I love that they're not doing that for the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think it adds like that extra element.
Yeah.
Because like I understand why they've done it the last couple of years because of COVID and everything, but please get rid of it. That's all I ask.
That was a long game. Yeah, that was a long game.
Yeah. But it seems like a lot of these series have kind of held up to their billing. I was a little worried that the Astros would just sweep, but they got rained out today, so we didn't get our second 4 playoff games in one day that sometimes we get. But it's nice that at least all of these you're getting at least 4 games.
Yeah.
Jock Peterson seems like he's been a really big pickup for the Braves. 2 pinch hit home runs is big, especially like. And this is a guy that's been there before, so he's not a guy that you'd really be that worried about, like, taking that extra step. So I think that'll really work well.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the bat. I guarantee you they won't, but I got it. I agree with everything you said. The Mets could have had Josh Peterson, but they signed Albert Almora Jr. and said he hit 115 this year. So yeah, and Peterson's an excellent fielder as well. What are you thinking about the Dodgers?
I don't know. It's tough to call that one.
Did that series turn in that game, or I mean, they busted out?
I think it might have, because especially like the Giants are still like, I know they have some of those guys from the early championship days. But still, there's a lot of guys that don't know much about the postseason. The Dodgers have won the World Series last year. They've been in the playoffs now 9 straight seasons. So I think, yeah, it might be turning a little bit. I think tonight will probably give a little bit more of an indication. But also, look who's on the mound for the Dodgers, Max Scherzer. So I think it is very possible.
That's amazing. Amazing that you can put Max Scherzer out there and with all the great players that they have. All right, because I'm getting the Yank here. I want to hear your final take on the Yankees, and then we'll do a fun fact or two real quick.
All right, so yeah, obviously it's frustrating, and like not even so much because they lost in the playoffs, but like I was going through it. The Yankees have been in the playoffs 9 of the last 12 years. And they haven't even made the World Series. In that time, 13 different teams have made the World Series, including the Mets. And the Yankees haven't even come really that close. They've made a couple ALCSs here and there. But I think, like, you look at a lot of the teams in the American League, whether you're talking the Red Sox, who have been there and won it, the Rays have been there at least. The Astros obviously have been a couple times. I think that's what more is frustrating for me. Isn't necessarily, okay, yeah, they lost. That's fine. But, like, there hasn't been a team that's made the playoffs as much as they have recently and haven't even made it there. I also was watching a video about it with Moose and Maggie on The Fan, and they were saying, like, 2017, after they had lost in the ALCS, people were like, oh, yeah, they'll definitely win a title within the next few years. Like, by 2021, they will have won at least 1 or 2. And they really haven't come close. And it seems like Aaron Boone is like, oh, well, yeah, the league's caught up to us. The league seems like they're lapping the Yankees, not necessarily catching up to them. Because it's not like even under his helm that they've come that close to making the World Series. Like the Rays, they are light years ahead of them. And it seems like a lot of people are like, oh, it's all the analytics. The Rays and the Dodgers, who were in the World Series last year and are probably favorites this year, they rely heavily on analytics.
Yeah.
I think it's just their philosophy that they're just all about the home run ball.
Yeah.
You still need base running. You still need guys that can field pretty well. So honestly, I think they should move on from Boone. I think it would be an easier, clean cut. But I don't think that'll change things. I don't think it was necessarily his fault. I think they need to kind of reevaluate how they're formulating the roster. But I will give two things real quick that I think are, or three things that are very positive from this season. First of all, their pitching was very underrated.
No doubt. Especially their bullpen, I thought.
Yeah, their bullpen was third in the majors. ERA overall was 6. Huge shout out to Matt Blake there. Secondly, strength and conditioning. The last 2 years, a lot of guys getting hurt.
Yeah.
Really, the only major injuries would be Aaron Hicks and Luke Voigt. You might also throw in Zach Britton there, but huge difference from previous years. Lastly, you saw the power of what Judge and Stanton can do. And I think that is something that moving forward is something that like can really get Yankee fans excited about.
No doubt.
Reform the roster, do a little bit of like a retooling, but at least, you know, like Stanton, I think, has proven in the last year that he's not like A-Rod where he'll melt in the playoffs. He went 3 for 3 and a home run. If that was at Yankee Stadium, probably would have been 3 home runs.
Yeah.
So
he just shouldn't have stood there and watched those balls, though. That was the only thing.
Yeah.
But I couldn't agree more with everything you said, except I might have a slight disagreement with Boone. I don't know. He's probably the best manager for them for right now. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. But everything else, I totally agree with. I totally agree with. Maybe we should do first part of our segment next week, fix the Yankees and fix the Mets. What will we do?
Oh, that's good.
All right. Fun fact. I'll give you one in the form of a trivia question, and I'm betting that you know the answer to this. The only player to play in a World Series and a Super Bowl is?
Isn't it Deion Sanders?
Wow. See, I knew you knew it. There you go. Awesome, man. You don't have the two sport. Like Kyler Murray hasn't played baseball yet, and although he's supposed to be really good, you don't have the two sport guys anymore. That might be a thing of the past, but I thought that was an amazing stat. And we talked about this. It's now, because I looked at an article from a couple of years ago. It listed the Nationals, Expos, and the Mariners as the two teams that had never been to a World Series. It's just the Mariners, obviously, now. So they're the only team that hasn't been to a World Series. And that's unbelievable when you think about the great players that's passed through that franchise. They've got to get their long averages, Those are my quick fun facts. What do you got?
Well, you talk about guys that were drafted in the MLB. One guy that fits that is Tom Brady, who, with his win over the Patriots, became just the 4th quarterback in NFL history to beat all 32 teams.
Wow.
Joining Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, and Brett Favre. So
good company. Wow.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Last thing, and this is an MLB playoff one here. I talked about how I didn't think the White Sox were that good. It's not just the White Sox, but the AL Central is really bad in the playoffs. How bad, you might ask? The last 25 postseason games, they are 4-21.
Wow, that's pretty bad.
And remember last year with the wild card series, the White Sox, the Twins, and the Indians all made the playoffs, and I don't think they won a single game among all three.
Oh my God!
So
terrible.
4-21, and I would have to look this up, but out of those 4 wins, I'm pretty sure 2 came in 2017 against the Yankees, where they won the first 2 and then lost the last 3. So AL Central not good in the playoffs.
Wow. That's interesting. And that got rained out today, right? I think they got rained out. Okay. All right, man. Kenny, take us home. Turn the music on. Take us home.
All right. This is Kenny Squared N.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We will see you guys next week. We'll fix the Yankees and Mets.
Fix the Yankees and Mets. That's what we'll do next week. All right. See you later. Talk to everybody soon.